Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into really just a single piece of artwork, but one that acts almost like a blueprint for a whole national belief system. We are looking at John Gast's 1872 painting, American Progress.
A really iconic image.
Okay, let's unpack this. This painting is, well, it's far more than just a historical scene of wagons moving west.
Oh, absolutely.
Our sources reveal that this image fundamentally codified the political and maybe even spiritual belief system known as manifest destiny.
Right. That idea that the U.S. was basically divinely ordained to expand across the whole continent.
Yeah, regardless of what or who was already there, it seems it was conceived and distributed as a pretty potent piece of propaganda, just, cloaked in the guise of art.
And the context of 1872 is just crucial. This wasn't painted centuries after the fact. It was painted during a period of really intense, often violent territorial expansion.
Right in the thick of it.
Exactly. Conflict with Native American nations, frantic infrastructure building. Our goal today, really, is to look past the surface beauty, synthesize the imagery, and understand not just what Gast painted, but why it was so effective.
Why it worked as a political argument for, well, displacement.
Yes, and why its implications for those being progressed over are, frankly, so chilling when you really look closely.
It sets up an immediate kind of moral tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So our core question for you today is this. How does this single iconic image manage to tell a visual story of both creation, building a nation, and, well, utter destruction at the same time?
That's the crux of it.
We really have to begin with the central figure because she just dominates the landscape. She defines the whole mission.
Columbia. Yeah.
Floating above the center, gliding westward. She's this luminous, sort of ethereal personification of the United States. She is the driving force.
She looks almost like a goddess of light, doesn't she? There's an inevitability to her movement.
Yeah, inevitable is the word.
And that element of her appearance, that translucent, almost spectral quality, that's a critical part of the propaganda itself.
How so?
Well, it suggests that her movement isn't based on, human greed or messy politics or policy. It suggests it's based on some higher divine mandate. She's not just a woman walking, she is destiny arriving.
That makes sense.
Oh.
So if expansion is destined, then resisting it is, what, futile? Or maybe even morally wrong, according to the painting's logic.
Precisely. But what truly defines this divine mission are the specific items she carries. When you look closely, they are explicitly the tools of, well, colonization and control.
Let's get into those. What's she holding?
So in one arm, she's cradling a school book.
Okay, education.
Right. Symbolizing education, knowledge, structured Western learning, basically. The tools for cultural assimilation for anyone who might remain in her path.
And the other hand, that one always strikes me.
The other hand is pure 19th century ambition. She is visibly, actively stringing a telegraph wire.
Pulling it from the east, stretching it across the continent behind her, like she's literally wiring the nation together as she goes.
It's an extraordinary detail, and it reflects that obsession with speed, with communication, with control that just dominated the era.
Right.
Remember, the transcontinental telegraph had only been operational for, what, about a decade when Gast painted this? Maybe a little more.
So cutting-edge tech for its time.
Absolutely, the ultimate symbol of technological progress. Instant communication across what used to be this vast, dangerous distance. So Columbia isn't just bringing education, she's bringing the technology that will enable control and, let's be honest, rapid financial exploitation of the West.
Wow. So the painting is arguing, visually at least, that the act of conquest isn't just a land grab. It's framed as a necessary intervention, an upgrade for the continent, with connectivity and knowledge.
That's the sophisticated artistic justification for manifest destiny right there.
And to make that justification really hit home, Gast uses this incredibly stark visual argument. You mentioned the East-West divide.
Exactly. The painting is almost neatly bisected. Light and shadow. Order and chaos.
Let's start with the light then. On the right side, the east, where Columbia is coming from, it's bathed in this bright, clear, almost golden light. It represents civilization already established.
And you see the proof of it, right? Established farms, fields being actively worked by farmers, suggest settled land, productive ownership.
Infrastructure too, right.
Oh, yeah. In the distance, you see established cities, towns thriving, and crucially, the infrastructure's there. Railroad tracks, stagecoaches, trains moving smoothly. The East is portrayed as ordered, predictable, economically functional. It's the goal.
It's the after picture that the West is supposed to become.
Precise.
But then as your eye follows Columbia across the center, you hit the left side.
Yeah.
The West. And the transition is pretty jarring.
It's immediate and brutal. The sky turns dark, heavy, ominous, almost stormy.
Yeah, it looks threatening.
And the landscape itself becomes rugged, wild, untamed, no neat fences, no cultivated fields. This visual shift, light to dark, is Gast's way of equating the West with, well, fear, maybe ignorance, certainly chaos. It's wilderness that needs to be conquered, needs to be cleaned up.
And the populations shift dramatically, too. The farmers and city folk of the East are replaced by figures fleeing the light.
Right. You see wild animals, specifically bison, bears literally bolting away from this advancing technological and human wave.
And the bison are key there, aren't they?
Incredibly revealing. It's easy to just see them as background detail, but the bison were central to the Plains tribe's way of life. Seeing them fleeing alongside the Native Americans themselves, it visually equates the destruction of nature with the destruction of indigenous culture.
As if both are just obstacles.
Exactly. The wild animal and the indigenous human are positioned together as things that must be cleared away so the railroad and the telegraph can come through.
Which brings us to the most painful historical reality shown here. The Native Americans. They are actively displaced, retreating into that darkness, overwhelmed not by an army in the painting, but by this seemingly unstoppable technological luminous force.
Yeah. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the painting visually argues that progress requires the removal of darkness, wilderness, and indigenous life. It frames the displacement, the violence, the broken treaties, not as tragedy, but as an inevitable, even necessary step towards American advancement.
The trains can't run through the wilderness or native lands, so the wilderness and the people have to be erased for the train to exist. That seems to be the message.
That's the cold logic presented visually.
But let's just pause on the timing again, 1872. By this point, the Transcontinental Railroad was complete. Right?
Yep, finished in 69.
Much of the West was surveyed. Major conflicts like the Dakota War, Sand Creek Massacre, those had already happened. This wasn't predicting the future.
That's a crucial distinction, absolutely. It wasn't describing something about to happen, it was validating an ongoing conquest. This really moves us beyond just aesthetics into the political function of the image.
Jesus wasn't just hung in an art gallery for elite.
No, it was mass-produced, distributed widely as lithographs, prints. It was meant to be seen by many people.
So it served as a supremely effective piece of pro-westward expansion propaganda. It celebrated the idea that America was destined to expand, painting these often brutal extractive actions as heroic, maybe divinely sanctioned because they're led by Columbia.
That goddess of light. And the inherent controversy, which, the historical sources illuminate so clearly, is that the entire celebration of progress depends on a massive act of forgetting, of omission.
What's left out?
The viewer is meant to identify with the light, the technology, the future, and that makes it really easy to overlook the human cost. The image totally minimizes the violence, the suffering involved in displacing Native American tribes, the wars, the broken treaties, disease, starvation, none of that is visible.
That's true. The painting doesn't show conflict. It just shows retreat. It turns the Native American tribes into these passive obstacles, just sort of fading out of the way of destiny.
Rather than active victims of a violent conquest, which was the reality for many. By simplifying this incredibly messy, violent history into a clean, bright narrative of technological inevitability, well, the moral superiority of the conqueror is visually sealed.
You don't have to feel bad about it if it looks this clean and inevitable.
Exactly. And that's you could say, the brilliance of the propaganda. It gives the American public, who were, let's face it, benefiting from the land and resources being taken, a high-minded moral reason to support expansion. It relieves them of the discomfort of confronting the actual violence needed to achieve it.
It turns policy into destiny.
Perfectly put. Political policy becomes divine destiny.
So what does this all mean for us today, looking back at this snapshot from 1872? I mean, the painting is both this fascinating, detailed record of American ambition, that dream of railroads, the obsession with the telegraph.
Right, you can see the aspirations of the era.
But simultaneously, it's a chilling visual justification for conquest, for the erasure of existing cultures, all under that banner of a divine mission. It captures the American psyche at maybe its most confident, but also perhaps its most morally complicated, maybe self-deceiving.
I think that's fair.
So, to sum up our deep dive, Gast's American Progress really shows us that progress as a concept is rarely neutral. It's a narrative.
Constructed.
Yeah, and constructed through intentional aggressive contrast. Light versus dark, order versus chaos, designed specifically to validate the actions of the powerful and those who benefit from expansion. This image tells us less about the land itself and far more about how the people gaining power wanted that whole process to be remembered.
And this raises, I think, a really important question for you, the listener, to consider, because the visual language used back in 1872, it's not obsolete, not at all.
How do you mean?
Think about how modern images and media, whether they're selling, say, a global initiative or a massive new infrastructure project, or the next technological future, how often do they still use these exact same visual cues?
Like overpowering light, shiny technology.
Exactly. The appeal of shiny tech, the promise of inevitable movement forward, the framing of things as unstoppable. We encourage you to look closely next time you see something like that.
What's being pushed into the darkness.
Right. What displacement, what negative impact is being intentionally pushed into the shadows off the edges of the frame when a modern narrative promises a future that looks maybe too bright, too simple to question? What narrative is being sold to you when they claim the future is inevitable?